Coren, your teacher, and we are going to continue our discussion about the operations on rational expression. So we are actually in the third part of this discussion or video tutorial, and we have the adding and subtracting different denominators. So this is totally different from with like denominators, since in like denominators, we discussed that we simply add the numerator and then copy the denominator. So this time we are given with different denominators. So what are the procedures in adding and subtracting rational expression with different denominators? First, we must find the least common denominator, or what we call the LCD. And then afterwards, write the equivalent expression of each rational expression. Third one is to add or subtract the numerators and keep that LCD. Simplify the result if possible. So let us have the definition first of LCD. I know you're already familiar with LCD. Well, actually, LCD, or the least common denominator of a set of fraction, is the least number that can be divided by the denominator of each fraction exactly. So whenever we get the LCD, that LCD must be divisible by all our original denominators. It is the least number wherein we can divide all of our other denominator. So in finding the LCD, we have the following procedures. So number one, we list the different denominators that appear in the rational expression. Then afterwards, we factor each denominator completely. So again, your knowledge about factoring is needed in this lesson. Third one, for each unique factor, compare the number of times it appears in each factorization. And then we are going to write a factored form that includes each factor, the greatest number of times it appears in the denominator factorizations. So let us do this. For example number 1, we are going to add 2y over 5x and 3x over 4np. So you may write or list down first the denominators and then determine the common factor. But the numerical coefficient, as you would notice, this is 5, which is actually a prime. And then 4, we can get 4 by multiplying 2 times 2. For the variables, we do not have any common variable. So we do not have any common factor with our denominators. If that will be the case, we are going to simply multiply the two denominators. So we have 5x squared times 4np. And then for our numerator, since this denominator or our new denominator is the denominator of the two fractions, it is important to know that whatever you multiply to the denominator, to the original denominator, you're going also to multiply that with our numerator. So 5x squared and 4np. Originally, on our first fraction, wala namang 4np. So therefore, you're going to multiply 4np with our numerator, which is 2y. So we have 2y times 4np plus, looking again to our new denominator and then comparing it to our original given, it is only 4np. So we multiply it by 5x squared, the second fraction. So that is also what we are going to do with 3x. We multiply 3x with 5x squared. And then we can now simplify our numerator. So multiply the numerical coefficients. So 2 times 4, that will give us 8. And then we have y times n times p. So since we do not have a common base or a common variable for this one, we simply copy the numerical or the literal coefficient. But when writing the literal coefficient, be sure that you are writing them alphabetically. Actually, you can have it as y and p, pero traditionally, we write it alphabetically for easy distinction. But either way, they are also correct. Siguro it's for the convenience of everyone. That's why we are writing it in alphabetical form. Next, we have 3 times 5, so that is 15. We have x. Since we have a common variable here, we simply add the exponent according to the product rule. So we have 1 here, 1 plus 2, so therefore we have 3. And the same thing that we are going to do with our denominator. So 5 times 4, that will give us 20. Then, again, you write that alphabetically. By the way, the process of multiplication sila kasi wala namang symbol sa pagitan ng letter, is actually commutative. So sabi ko kanina, pwede naman magkapalit yung variable. Pero to save time for the teachers and checking, to compare your answers with your classmate, usually we write it alphabetically. So for our second example, let us have this given. We have 5 over a squared plus 5a minus 7 over 3a plus 15. Notice that, again, they have different denominators. So since we cannot add the numerators, if we have different denominators, what we are going to do is to factor out first our denominators. So we have a squared plus 5a for our first denominator. So notice that the common factor here is a. Since we already factored out a, the other factors will be a. How did I get a? That is a squared divided by a. So that is a. And then 5a divided by a will give us 5. Yeah. That is for our first fraction. For our second fraction, it's 3a plus 15. So, common factor, correct? They are both divisible by 3. So, we factor out 3. Then, we have, so 3a divided by 3, we have a. And then 15 divided by 3 will give us 5. That is that a plus 5 is both common for our two fractions. So, this will be easier this time. We copy the factors for our first fraction. So that is a times the quantity a plus 5. For our second fraction, since the denominator is 3 times the quantity a plus 5 and we already have a plus 5, so we are simply going to add 3. Now, compare our original fraction or denominator with our new denominator. Yes, we are missing 3 on this one. So we multiply 3 to our numerator. So that will give us 3 times 5. We copy the sign. So this is negative. And then looking back again to our original denominator, our second denominator, we have 3 times the quantity a plus 5, wherein our LCD is 3a times a plus 5. So we are missing the variable a. So that is what we are going to multiply with our numerator, which is 7. So we have 7 times a. Simplifying this one, we have 3 times 5 will give us 15 minus 7 times a. So that is 7a or negative 7a. For our denominator, we multiply, we distribute 3a to the terms inside our parentheses. So that is 3a times a will give us 3a. 5a squared. Then 3a times 5 will give us positive 50a. We actually have no factors for the numerator. That's why our answer for example number 2 is already in its simplest or lowest term. So for our third example, and actually this is the last, in adding subtracting rational expressions with different denominator, we are given with 3 fractions. So again, we get the factors of our denominator for us to get the LCD. So for the first fraction, it has a denominator of x plus 2. And x plus 2 do not have any other factor. So we'll be skipping the first fraction. For the second denominator of our second fraction, we have x squared minus 4. It falls under the difference of two squares. And difference of two squares has a product, or it is a product of two binomial terms, the sum and difference of two terms. So we simply get the square root of x squared, which is x, and square root of 4 is 2. Again, that is a product of a sum and difference. For the second factor, still it's x and 2 but with different sign. For our third denominator, we have x squared plus 3x plus 2. So since this is a trinomial, this is also a product of two binomials. First, we get the square root of x squared so that we can distribute it to the two factors. And then we must find a factor of 2 that when we add them, the answer is actually 3. And root 2 is a prime number. It doesn't have any other factor rather than 1 in itself. So we have 2 and 1 here. For the sign, the last term is positive and the middle term is positive. So we are going to apply two positive signs. So let us have our LCD. In having the LCD, we simply copy the common or the factors. But the common factor, take note of that kasi we are going to skip them. So for our first fraction, we have x plus 2. For our second fraction, yes, we already have x plus 2. So we simply copy x minus 2. For a third fraction, we already have also x plus 2, so we simply copy x plus 1. Now, for our numerators, again, take note of our original denominators and compare it to our LCD. So for our first one, we have x plus 2. So we are added with x minus 2 and x plus 1. So we have 3 here times x minus 2 times x plus 1. For our second fraction, so the original fraction has the denominator which has the factors of x plus 2 times a quantity x minus 2. And we already have the 2, 1 here. So meaning we are going to multiply x with x plus 1. Then for our last fraction, we're going to multiply negative 4 with, yes, with x minus 2. Since we already have the quantity x plus 2 times the quantity x plus 1 as its factors of the denominator. We can now simplify our numerator. So we have here 3. Multiplying this, we may apply the FOIL method. So we have x squared. For the middle term, it's x times 1. So that is x, negative 2 times x, negative 2x. So that will give us negative x. And then negative 2 times 1 will give us negative 2. Plus x times 1, x is x squared, and then x times 1, it's x. Negative 4 times x, we also distribute that one. So it's negative 4x plus 8 over this one. We're not going to multiply it first because we might simplify our fraction later. So we simply copy our LCD. We can now simplify terms. Since we do not have enough space here, we can copy or multiply it directly and then add with the remaining like terms. So 3 times x, that will give us 3x squared, and we have here x squared. So 3x squared plus x squared will give us 4x squared. For the next one, we have 3 times negative x, so that will give us negative 3x plus x. Yes, it's negative 2x minus 4x, it's negative 6x. Then we have 3 times negative 2 will give us negative 6. Negative 6 plus 8, so we have positive 2. So again, we copy our denominators. Now, since we do not have space, let us jump with the next slide. So, isulit lang natin kung saan tayo natapos kanina, which is 4x squared minus 6x plus 2. And then, ang LCD na nakuha natin is quantity x plus 2 times the quantity x minus 2 times the quantity x plus 1. Now, kukunin natin ang factor ni numerator para makapag-cancel out na tayo. So, notice na ang ating numerator ay divisible by 2. So, we can divide out by 2. So, 4x squared divided by 2 will give us 2x squared. Then, negative 6x divided by 2, we have negative 3x. Then, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Now, mamaya natin sulat yung ating denominator. Since we have trinomial here, so therefore, that is a product of binomial terms. We have 2x squared, so hatiin lang natin. We have 2x and x. For 1, wala naman siya ibang factor kundi 1. Ang dulong term natin ay positive, pero ang middle ay negative. So therefore, we are going to use 2 negative sign. Kasi negative 1 times negative 1 will give us positive 1. And then 2x times x is 2x squared. So tama naman yung first and last. Check natin yung middle term. So that is 2x times negative x. Yes, it's negative 2x. And then negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative x plus negative 2x will give us, correct, will give us negative 3x. So, tama ang ating mga factors. Now, we write the LCD here, which is quantity x plus 2 times the quantity x minus 2 times the quantity x plus 1. Ganun din syempre yung nasa taas. Hindi, skip lang natin kanina, pero yun din naman. Ang ating LCD. Hindi na nabago ang ating LCD kasi wala namang nabagong fraction. Ngayon, we can factor out kung alin ang common sa ating numerator at denominator. Ano walang common sa ating numerator at denominator? Ay, siya nga. Walang common kasi dito, ang given ay x minus 1 na nakuha nating factor. Sa kabila naman, or sa denominator natin ay x plus 1. Meaning, yung sinolve natin kanina na 4x squared minus 6x plus 2 over our LCD, which is quantity x plus 2 times quantity x minus 2 times the quantity x plus 1 is already our final answer. So that is all for our video tutorial. I hope you learned something for today. Thank you for watching. And thank you for listening. This is me again, Ma'am Coren, your teacher for today. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye. Do not forget to like and subscribe. God bless.